You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Global Trade This Week. My name is Doug Draper. I'm coming to you from my 2018 Mazda 6 in a parking lot. And on the other side of the country is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Pete Mento. Pete, how's it going?
Going good, buddy. I'm actually in Dallas right now. I was in San Antonio and Austin yesterday. I'll be in Dallas the next 2 days. And then San Diego and Mexico, and then up to LA. So crazy week, bud. Crazy week.
Yeah. All of that is in a week?
Yep.
Gosh, when you got your trip booked to Mars? That's what I want to know.
I don't know, bud. I think we had this conversation. I think if I was younger, I would have been brave enough to do it, but I don't think I'm in any sort of shape to do that now, pal.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we got a tight schedule on this one, so either some listeners will say yes, and some listeners will say, why is it only going to be 20 minutes? But regardless, we're going to press forward. So I think we're going to tag team some topics. Lots of news has transpired in the last 48 hours. So let's just jump into it, Pete. You can start off, and then I have some comments to chime in.
Yeah, so, I mean, everybody's talking about this, right? So over the weekend, President Trump had threatened 3 countries, Canada, Mexico, and China, with tariffs under the International Economic Powers Act. And the threat looked, it's very credible, right? He was preparing to do all of this. And last minute, 2 of those countries, 2 very important countries, Canada and Mexico, came to terms with the United States for to push this out for a month. So it hasn't gone away, which I think is super important for people to realize. We've just kicked the can down the road for another month. But what came out of this was a pretty substantial presence at the border in both Mexico and Canada, as well as commitments to put money behind the securing of both of those borders. The International Economic Powers Act was used because of fentanyl overdoses in the U.S., as well as a migration crisis that President Trump is concerned with, as well as the base of his party. So when you begin to look at what came out of this, it's really, it was a move to put tariffs in play to more or less keep a promise to his base. 10,000 troops at the southern border of Mexico were put into place, or will be put into place. And what I find absolutely amazing, Doug, is one of the most wanted fugitives from the narcos was found within an hour of this agreement on the southern border. So that's pretty incredible. One more thing I'd like to add is overnight last night, there's open source intelligence, right? OSNet is something that geeks like me really enjoy. And there are Twitter feeds of it all over the place. And so last night there was a bunch of open source intelligence nerds freaking out because some of the most advanced surveillance aircraft that America has was patrolling within Mexican airspace. So ones that gather electronic intelligence are able to actually identify where certain signals are coming from. So we've really stepped up identifying the actual positions of these people. Now, along with that as well, Mexico has been firing on American personnel, and they have also been sending suicide drones after them. Both of these are a terrifying idea. And what I'm concerned with is the escalation of that and where that will end up. On the Canadian side, of course, you've just got a significant commitment by Mr. Trudeau and his economy's government to push more security up there and also go after what are being considered these super laboratories manufacturing synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Today, the president has a call with Xi Jinping in China, and I guess they're going to have a chat as well. The Chinese have put retaliatory tariffs of their own in there. Not nearly as big as I thought it would be, Doug. Like they didn't go as hard as I thought they would. So there is an opportunity for what we call an off-ramp, a way for us to move away from these tariffs. But I guess we'll find out later on today whether or not that's realistic. I don't know, Doug, this is a wild topic, man. I mean, I think it was a longer trade war than Colombia, but, not too much longer.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that because I was thinking in the last 24 hours how things have just, been a whirlwind on it. And you bring some great points, things that I was not aware of down on the Mexican border. Love the apprehension within an hour of the bad actors down there. That's pretty amazing stuff. So my take on this is a little more gentler, if you will, and it's more of just a mindset, right? So literally in the last 4 days, right, we've basically had quote unquote trade wars that ended quickly with Colombia, Canada, Mexico, China, and
Has it
we
ended?
had influence over Panama. Right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that here in 2 seconds. But all of this, I mean, the amount of chaos in the news feeds that came about, like, oh my gosh, the world's going to implode. I wanted everybody to say, listen, we're going to react appropriately. We're going to adjust and potentially brace for impact, right? But the bottom line is panic costs more money than patience. And so we've seen that when these news flashes come out, and they will come out again, right? There's other trade partners we have in the world, Germany and the UK, maybe those are the next ones that come into play. But as far as the people and the countries that we've dealt with in the last 4 days are pretty much our top trade partners. If you say who are the top 5, even the top 3, we just covered them all. So everybody take a deep breath. Basic advice in life: it will come, but we can control how we react to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's something we tell our kids. That's something we tell our spouse. And I think it's important away from the topic of trade and what does that do to impact us. Everybody needs to calm down and just understand the situation, because a panic, like I said, is way more costly than a panic costs more than patience. So you have the blocking and tackling. I have the softer, gentler take on it, but it will be interesting. It's a roller coaster, and there will be more to come, and we'll be talking about it here on Global Trade.
Yeah, I was in calls and meetings on Thursday and Friday in Chicago, like face-to-face client calls, and they were freaking out. And I said, there's a real good chance that these tariffs will be announced. But what I need everyone to do is what you just said. Take a breath, let it sort itself out, have a plan B. Absolutely always have a plan B, a plan C even. But wait until all the parties have had an opportunity to have a conversation about this before we, break the glass and pull out the emergency fire extinguisher and the axe and start dealing with it. Just let it all sort out. And I would say that as we go into the next couple of years, that's probably the best advice I can give anyone, is until Customs has been told how to manage it, until you've seen the Federal Register, until the executive orders are out, there's going to be a cadence to how this happens. So take a breath, consider what's happening, and then move on from there.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Pete, normally we jump in and do our halftime, but this episode is really condensed. We've rescheduled it twice. I'm doing it from my car. This is certainly not our day job, right? This is a work of passion. So we're going to keep it short and sweet this week, and we're going to skip the halftime. But I do want to call out the Cap Logistics that sponsor halftime, and they put this show on, and we really appreciate their support week in and week out.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to jump in with my second topic, Pete, and then you can chime in. This is related to Panama, right? There's an influence that's been extended down there, not a trade war, but I was doing some research, and then this entity called C.K. Hutchinson popped up multiple times, and I'm like, okay, is that an artist? Is it an actor? Like, who is C.K. Hutchinson? And it's not a person. It's a Hong Kong-based company that has a 25-year contract to operate the Panama Canal. And they operate both ends, the east and the west, as far as access points. And the fact that it's Hong Kong, and technically that's part of China, and everybody's freaking out, right? I think Marco Rubio in the last couple of days really sparked. So what happens if there's a trade situation, an unstable a trade impasse, and all of a sudden trying to make the phone call to CK and say, shut it down, right? Not only does that impact trade, it impacts the the military aspects and everything of our great nation. So it is interesting. I think that Panama, I think the spotlight will focus a little bit more down there, and that's a topic that will continue the next couple of days. But it's supposed to be a sovereign location, right? No influence. That was one of the caveats whenever I think it was Carter gave everything back to Panama for control, is it needs to be uninfluential and open access to everybody. But yet, yesterday, there was some applied pressure that basically said you need to make sure that the U.S. Navy fleet can get through that port with free access. So I guess rules are very important to follow, Pete, unless they're no longer convenient. And so just another example, not a trade war, but applying pressure to what's supposed to be, a sovereign, if you will, position down there, and say no influence in the Panama Canal, but yet that just happened yesterday.
Right.
So anyway, I didn't know who C.K. Hutchinson was. I now have a good understanding, and that topic will continue to fester and come up again. And mark my words, we'll hear a lot more about it in the upcoming week.
Yeah, Mr. Rubio apparently has secured some kind of a deal, right, where the Panama Canal will be under the influence of the United States. It's fascinating, right? So, staying non-political here, I've transited the canal when I was a young man, and I've spent some time at Panama when I was cadet shipping with Crowley. It was a fascinating experience, first of all, and second of all, what I don't think most Americans understand is that every time a ship goes through there are harbor pilots. There are very specific types of people who are trained to transit the canal, and the responsibility is still with the captain, but the transit is being done by this harbor pilot. They're all trained in America. All those harbor pilots that actually manage the ships coming through, they attend U.S. Merchant Marine academies. And then they go back home and make an ungodly amount of money handling those ships all the way through there. The point I'm trying to make here is that we have always supported the operation of the canal. We've supported it to the point where we're training the people who help ships to transit. And, the forays that were done through our international relations over the last couple of days reminded them and told them how we're solidifying that, how we're managing that, our investment that was made to create it. And I think there was probably also some conversations about what we can do, maybe use it more. And then also the amount of costs that we've been paying to transit. It's a lot of money. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars for container ships to go through there. So it's about trying to find some equity, trying to bring it back into balance. And from everything that was reported in the media yesterday, we apparently have come to a point where our State Department is satisfied with the outcome. We'll see how it all shakes out. I don't think this one's over, Doug, but I think we're at least in a better position than we were a few days ago. So yeah, I guess we are going to have to watch this pretty closely.
Yeah. Interesting times, man.
Yeah.
After January, after the inauguration, man, things just got put into fifth gear and the gas got put down.
This has been the wildest month of my career, and I'm sure it's the same way for you. But I had a call with our marketing folks yesterday real quick, and they said, how's your day going? And I said, I've had, and I counted on my phone, I've had 41 phone calls since 3:30 this morning. And I left to drive from Dallas to San Antonio at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I just sat there on the phone talking to people in China, talking to people in Europe, then talking to people in America. And it's like as the sun went across the country, the phones just started ringing at 0800 their time. And then I had meetings with people who were very dependent on Mexican trade. And during one of the meetings, the announcement came out, which was nice, to be able to give somebody some great advice. And then later on in the day, similarly, I was talking to someone nervous about Canada. I said, oh, I got some good news here. It's not over, but we seem to have pushed it out a month, and hopefully they can find a way to make it work between them. But wow, Doug, it's a mad time of our careers right now.
Yeah. I'll let you sign off, but the last thing I want to say is you and I spoke about how crazy January is going to be. I don't remember what episode it was, but rewind back to early December, and we were like, look out. Between the port strike, TikTok ban, inauguration, watch out. January is going to knock your socks off, and it certainly has.
Yeah, delivered, man. Well, in this abbreviated version of Global Trade This Week, we want to thank all of our listeners and certainly our sponsor, Capitalogistics, for their unending support of the show, for loaning us Keenan when he's not in 7th grade, making macaroni paintings for his mom on Mother's Day. And I want to thank all of you for listening, of course. And if it happens in Global Trade next week, actually, if it happens in Global Trade, we'll be talking about it on Global Trade this week. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. All right. See you, Pete. Take care.